Okay. Uh, Good afternoon. This is Mary Catherine with Quarantined Couch. And today I'm having my first recorded chat. Today I'm visiting with Chris Salas from San Antonio, Texas. Chris sustained a spinal cord injury from a car accident in 1997, and since then he's devoted himself to helping others. He is an ambassador with the Christopher Reeves Foundation. He is president of the United Spinal San Antonio, and he's the founder and executive director of Rolling Inspiration. Personally, I've known Chris for 30 years, almost 30 years now, which means we met when we were babies. I've had the privilege of knowing him since high school, and I've had the honor of working with him the past 2 summers, volunteering with an adaptive surf event in Port Aransas, Texas, that he coordinates with, in conjunction with Life Rolls On out of California. So, Chris, welcome, and thank you for taking the time to visit with me today.
No, thank you. Thank you for the kind words, and thank you for forcing me to get dressed, at least from the waist up.
Hey, we have that in common, because that's my situation as well. It forced me to, I was drying my hair and I was like, I'm just going to dry the front because no one's going to see the back. So.
Oh, I actually had to brush mine, so I haven't got to the point where I have to do the quarantine cut like I've seen most people doing nowadays. I'm not up to ruining my hair that yet. At least not
at my house. My 2 little boys are sporting their quarantine cut right now. My husband did that to them though, not me. I'm not that.
No, I feel like I'm gaining weight. My face is breaking out. I think my body thinks it's a teenager again with all the snacking and movie time now, being quarantined. But
laying on couch, playing video games, and eating Cheetos.
Pretty much, yeah.
Well, thanks for taking the time to sit down and visit with me. I wanted to talk to you and just get your perspective on everything that's going on. You know, this week I kind of introduced the idea, and I called it being mentally tough, and I don't know if that's really fair. I think we're all faced with challenges. No one challenge to one individual is bigger or worse than to another. Does that make sense? Like,
sure, it's all perspective.
Right. Yeah.
I often get people that tell me, will talk about their problems to me, and they're like, "Oh, it's nothing compared to what you go through." And I say, "No, it's all perspective. If it's important to you, it's affecting you, then it is just as important as, say, me trying to get out of bed every day."
Yeah.
And so don't ever downplay what you are going through just because somebody else may have it worse.
So one of the things I think is really interesting, or one of the things that I've been thinking about a lot, is just that, like, what it takes to work through a challenge. And we were talking a little bit about this before we started recording, and about having that kind of flexibility to adjust or to adapt to whatever the situation is. Like, we were talking about how the thing that is very dangerous is saying when things go back to normal, because I don't know that things will ever be normal what they used to be before. And
right, it's about this is our new normal right now, and when we get back to what people are thinking, we're just going to go back to the way it used to be, and unfortunately that's not going to be the fact. There's still going to be millions of people out of jobs, still going to be adjusting back. Not everybody, everybody thinks that May 1st, whatever the date is, the switch is going to be flipped and everything's going to be back. It's going to be a process, just like we've been phased out to be quarantined. We're going to have to be phased back in the community and finding out our new lanes. And unfortunately, there's no switch that's going to flip things back to where they were, 3 months ago.
So talking about switching a flip, or flipping a switch rather, flipping a switch, when there's no switch that can be flipped that's going to help you, like, it's not going to be just an instant way of coping with this either. I think that's another thing that's really kind of a scary thought, is that a lot of us don't have coping skills or strategies in place to help us navigate these challenges. And so I wanted to talk with you about how you developed. It was over time. It wasn't overnight, right? How you developed.
Right. And also, I don't really call it social distancing, because with technology nowadays, we're all very social still. I just call it proximity distancing. And so the what I coped with 23 years ago, um, coping back then was a lot different than now, because you have so much access to the outside world and things you can escape with. But it's a lot of determination and mental fortitude. You hear that a lot. And for me, it was about making sure I had, when people ask me how I often get through these times of, I've had dozens of surgeries, I've had dozens of hospital stays, many complications to do with the injury. And my simple answer is faith. And whether you believe in God, Buddha, Allah, fate, I just feel like there's powers beyond our understanding that are guiding us. And so just having that faith. But I also am an intellectual type person. And faith, also the origin of faith is confidence in a person, place, or thing. And then I've also, acronyms drive me crazy, but I'm really good at coming up with them. And so faith, again, breaks down for me is, family, attitude, integrity, tenacity, and help. And help is a really big thing.
So fafamily, attitude, integrity, tenacity, and help. So break that down further. Obviously, family speaks for itself. Sometimes family, and you'll probably touch on this, isn't just blood relatives, but it's the people.
It's definitely not. Whether we're going through a spinal cord injury or a depression or anything like that, your family, your whole community is affected. And by community, I don't mean your neighborhood. I mean your family, your friends, your coworkers are all affected by the way you are. And so when I say family, it doesn't necessarily mean blood at all, because there's people that don't have any family and still able to process, because they are surrounded by those that care for them. And so I think, family is the word that fit, but it's really about, your immediate community. Attitude speaks for itself. You can either choose to live or choose to die. I remember going through mine. I did go through the phase of wanting to die, until I finally got to that point where I didn't want to die. But then I also went through the phase of wanting to live, because not wanting to die and wanting to live are two different things as well. And so getting that attitude and that, and then there is no mental formula on how long that takes either.
So that's talking kind of about fullness of life. I mean, you can not want to die and just have an existence, or you can want to live and really strive to have like a full life. Did that for you, obviously for you, that meant helping others. Do you think that that's a key component to like this wanting to live, creating a full life is finding how you can be helpful, what skills you have that can help other people around you or in your community?
Right. And actually our tagline for Rolling Inspiration is stop existing and start living. And having goals, having something other than yourself, helps distract your mind. And while you're there helping others, you subconsciously are helping yourself. I recently spoke did a TED talk, and I mentioned about the first time I was asked to go speak to a patient. And when I left that room, I had my Grinch moment where my heart grew 3 times its size, and I knew that that's what I was supposed to do. And it wasn't so much, I got tremendous feedback about what the patient said about what I did, but it was more about how I felt afterwards. And I knew that, this was going to be not only fulfilling for others, but a lot of self-fulfilling. And again, having a goal and having something bigger than myself helps with the attitude. And again, integrity and tenacity also kind of all fit into that same category. They're all kind of synonyms.
I really like the last one too, help, because this is huge. Because in our community and in our society, or not our community, but in our society, it's and this is something we talked about, something you've said as well. It's kind of viewed as weak to be in a position where you're having to ask for help.
Right. Well, we've gone from a collective society to an individualistic one, and so with that in mind, when you're asking for help, or when you don't have as much as the other person, you are looked as a lesser individual. And unfortunately, that's just really not the case. It's more in our mind that we think that than there are those people that are going to make you feel lesser because you don't have, or you can't do with or without. But I think right now is a really good time for people to, set aside your pride and ask for help if you need it. The analogy I use is, remember, even Superman needed a Justice League.
Yeah, I like that too. That's true. I think that is going to be something that it's going to be very challenging for people to actually ask for help.
We'd rather, and I'm just as guilty as the next person, but we'd rather go without than go and ask somebody for $1 or a cup of sugar, or and so it's really time to, just like I said, set aside the pride and make sure we help each other. And then on the flip side of that is being the help for others. Don't wait for somebody to ask to offer.
Yeah, I think that's another thing too. I think people think, well, I'm not in a position to help anybody else because either I don't make enough money or I don't have an education behind me that, I'm in a position to help someone. So they feel like they don't have anything to offer.
And sometimes it's not even monetary or, in anything other than that. It's just about lending an ear or being that voice, or just something that somebody can be a soundboard off of. You don't have to say anything. You just be there for that person, and just stop by and saying hi will make a big difference in that person's world. And what may take you 5 minutes will make that person's day or week. And we don't realize the impact that we have on others.
Something that everybody has to give is their time.
Right. Another analogy that I like to use is, we're all stones being thrown into a pond. Some are bigger than others, so that ripple effect is beyond our knowledge.
That's a really good one too. I like that. So something I think that happens a lot is people come to you and they say, this is something that you and I have spoken about as well. They say, I wish there was a way that you could talk to people or tell them not to take for granted, what their lives are today, because you never know what's going to happen tomorrow. And sometimes it takes some kind of trauma or a crisis or a tragedy to occur before people really appreciate their lives or appreciate
my normal response to that is, why do we wait for a tragedy to do something triumphant? And again, it can be something triumphant is a relative term of what it is. It could be, running a marathon, or it could be getting off the couch.
On for today.
Right. And both couldn't be outwardly more different, but the sentiment is still the same for some people. It's, yes, I got out of bed. I may not have put my pajamas on or taken my pajamas off, but at least I got out of bed today. Or I ran that half a mile longer than I thought I was going to, or that I set out for myself. And another saying of mine is, if everything was easy, nothing would be appreciated.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes the struggle helps give us perspective, but we shouldn't wait for that struggle. Appreciate what you have, because we've mentioned this before. There is always somebody with lesser than what you have.
I think that's one of the great things about practicing gratitude every day too, is it helps exercise that grateful, like that muscle. I mean, that kind of muscle mindset of being grateful and appreciative and looking around and seeing the blessings in your day-to-day life, no matter how big or how small they might be.
This helps give a lot of people perspective whenever I talk about stuff like that. Whenever I wake up, I am grateful every day that I'm able to wake up and look down and see my feet. Now, I may not be able to move them, but I have them, and I can look at them, and I can see that I am still here. And I think that helps give people a lot of perspective. Is, this guy, I have every excuse not to get up every day, not to be thankful, not to to be angry or with my situation, but none of that is going to change what's happened. None of that, the only thing I can do is change what's happening. And every day set a goal for yourself, whether it be just, I need to get out of the bed and lay on the love seat instead of the couch, something different, because we get into these creatures of habit, and that's also, with the negative.
Well, I think something interesting that you said, and I want to kind of reiterate and expand on, is you said, you mentioned every day we have this choice to make. It's like every day you choose faith, you choose family, attitude, integrity. I mean, it's not like you make the choice once and it carries on for the rest of your life. It's like a daily, your attitude and how you address your day is made each day that you wake up.
Especially in times like this, because we're again creatures of habit. We wake up, get dressed, go to work, cook dinner, come home, take care of the kids, and do the same thing over and over. And I think having that same habit now is not healthy. You need to change it up. If it's just one small thing, have a goal to do something different. My goal today is to not make a microwave dinner, but actually cook something on the stove. And
I really enjoyed, I follow Chris on social media, and so I've gotten to see all of his latest recipes that he's been trying out. Somebody you should write a cookbook.
Yeah, I thought about it, because technically I'm considered a quadriplegic, so I was like, call it the quadriplegic, yeah, the quads quarantine cookbook or something like that.
Alliteration, I love it. That works. Well, again, Chris, thank you so much for taking the time for visiting, and I hope you have a great day and a great.
I have one more thing I just wanted to bring up.
Sure, of course.
It's about gestures, how we just talked about, and no matter how big or small. This is another thing I came up during the TED Talk, was like, every gesture, no matter how small, helps light up the world. And keep in mind, even the flickering of a candle can be the brightest light in someone's cave.
Mm-hmm.
But why be a candle when you were born to be the sun?
That's a really good one too. So small.
Get up there.
What's that?
So just get up there, and and again, it's all perspective. It's all just little things help. And if everybody did something small, we'd all be, think globally, act locally, and help your community in whatever it may be. Check on a neighbor that you've never talked to. Now's the perfect time to be socially distant and say hello.
Yeah. Knock on the door and then step back.
Yeah, step back. Yeah.
I really appreciate it, Chris. Thank you so much.
Sure. Anytime. If anybody ever needs anything, feel free to reach out. You can share my social media or anything like that. I'm happy to help.
I'm going to put a link to Rolling Inspiration's Facebook page, as well as Chris's TED Talk that he did, so that you guys can check it out if anybody wants to hear more from Chris. And
well, thank you for having me. Sam Cooke saying a change is going to come, and it will. So just stay strong and hold on to your faith.
I appreciate it. Thanks, Chris.
Yeah.